All right, thank you for joining us. This is FIGGERRIDOUT.com. Today I'm here with a very special guest, Dr. Karen Anderson, PhD. Now, today is a non-pitch day. We're not selling stuff, which I'm sure suits her just fine, and so we don't have to keep our buzzers ready for covert pitching before the end and, those penalties and all that kind of stuff. So if you like these non-pitching episodes, this is one for you. Now, Dr. Karen has taken her field of expertise online, and I've watched as hundreds, and I'm sure thousands or maybe even tens of thousands of kids have earned their education with her help. And everyone who's listening and is passionate about any cause at all and wants to take this cause online should stop what they're doing, should grab a pen and paper, and start listening. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Karen Anderson.
Thanks, Dan, for that introduction, and I'm happy to be here.
This is so exciting. So, okay, you've got an awesome online following, and practically none of them know about FIGGERRIDOUT.com. So it's a show where I have some guests. We focus on building your online presence, especially your business, and we go through the different things to cultivate our attention to detail. Just build your attention to detail and get more skills, which eventually ends up making our lives better. So to go along with the show, you can go to FIGGERRIDOUT.com and get my book on achieving excellence in one skill, and then using that technique to multiply your skills until you make people nauseous. So get your copy when you can and build your career, your business, and yourself. Figure it out. Just figure it out. But let's first talk about how we came to work with each other, and that was for a good number of years. So the first thing, and I don't think you realize it, is that you're actually the only startup that I took on as a client. And I mean, since I got hired for the real estate investment firm and had to stop freelancing once I became, director of technology and eventually chief technology officer, I wasn't taking any clients. But yeah, you're the only startup that I took on as a startup, as a regular client until very, very recently. Now, were you aware of that?
No, I knew that I depended on you heavily and that you had other clients that you were also trying to serve, but you helped me tremendously and were always trying to be there for me when I had issues.
Yeah, it's really funny thinking back to then. So that's why I was also so excited to catch up and share. So sticking with the background, now how long after you started did you end up on my phone at One Shopping Cart?
Well, I started my business in fall of 2011 and was set up with One Shopping Cart. Mm-hmm. And I know my specialty field. I know it in and out. That's my specialty. Mm-hmm. But starting an online business had a lot of question marks. Mm-hmm. One Shopping Cart is a very comprehensive service, but I really needed a lot of help with filling in the blanks. And so I made One Shopping Cart was on speed dial. Mm-hmm. And probably in that first couple of months, I talked to a lot of the guys, including you. Mm-hmm. But sometime in early 2012, mm-hmm. During one of my calls with you, which was working on something to further my understanding and how can I apply what One Shopping Cart had to exactly what I needed. And it was never quite a perfect fit.
Right.
It was always, anyway. And you said, Karen, I think I can help you, but I need to talk to you offline. Let me call you. Mm-hmm. And so it was only like 4 months, maybe, mm-hmm. after I started with One Shopping Cart, that you and I found our way together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and so and that's what I had to do, and I have that in my ebook that you can see from funnelfixing.com. But it's how to get that rapport with people and then go, because if you recall, I remember when I first started freelancing, the biggest reason was because there were only two different people that we were even aware of to mention their names for integrating, the forms and the shopping cart and all that kind of stuff from One Shopping Cart. And I remember one was where I am now, which is Ottawa, and he was charging $60 an hour. and then there was another one in Florida, and we knew for a fact that she was outsourcing to Asia for the work, and she was charging $80 an hour. And I'd been, like my first stint as an entrepreneur was probably when I made my instructional guitar video. So I was like 17 years old. So I always had entrepreneurs, like needs in my heart, because it's just so tough to just get by. And so that's why I came onto the scene. I'm like, well, hey, well, I'll do it for 30, and people will do it with a smile on their face, right? And yeah, and so, but the thing that I want to emphasize, that maybe you don't even realize this, but our audience would probably pick up on it. You actually in the first few seconds just described leveraging your time, and that's one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs run into, is that they want to keep on doing things on their own, and they don't know when to, hit the panic button and get somebody else to do it. And it's so important to know the value of your own time. And then if there's a task that needs to be done, and you're too expensive to do it, then you got to get somebody else. Full stop. You just cannot. You cannot try to do it all yourself. So I think that's really cool. Now, the next question I had here was, by the time I called you, did I, like on that secret offline call, you weren't concerned at all about the fact that I was moonlighting, right?
I really wasn't. You and I had talked enough on our one shopping cart calls that we had developed a rapport. Plus, I'm a risk taker. I appreciate other risk takers. I'm an entrepreneur. I appreciate that in others. And I think it's very common when you're starting a small business, you have to have some other source of income. And so to find somebody who was working, providing technical support, was good, but who also wanted to work outside and do more of the customized kinds of things that I needed, was wonderful. So I was thrilled, and I was not concerned about the moonlighting aspects. It's a typical scenario when you're starting a small business.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I've been thinking about this a lot preparing for this video, because especially how both of us grew at the same time, because Affordable VAs was growing, and Success for Kids with hearingloss.com was growing, and this I was really looking forward to this interview, because it gives us a chance to address your side, whereas I'm always saying about what's it like being the freelancer, and I also want to make sure that we hear your side, because some people will have inhibitions, and they won't want to pull the trigger on their business. They know that it doesn't take a math genius to realize that if you're making like $15 or $20 an hour and you can freelance for 40, then you only have to do half as many hours to make up your wage. And so why wouldn't you? So hopefully talking to you will get more people to make that jump into freelancing, just so they know, it's not as scary as it sounds, getting on the phone with somebody who you've spoken to before and say, hey, I might not be the best guy out there, but I do know this part, I know the shopping cart backwards and forwards, and, I'm willing to figure it out, and I'm willing to do it for way cheaper than other people. And people resonate with that very, very easily. And so one thing that has come up fairly recently, especially since I started writing the book, I actually had my wife. She actually admitted to me that she didn't believe that I had what it takes to be successful until I actually proved it. And she knew that I knew a lot of things about a lot of things, but she never really felt like that mattered. Not in a money sense either. So basically, I know she had her doubts as I was growing my business. Now, what about your experience with your spouse? Did your spouse really doubt the ability for success for kids with hearingloss.com to get to be where it is today?
Well, he always wanted me to be satisfied in my career, and he recognized that I had a real passion. I had a dream, and I thought what I wanted to offer the world was really important. It was important for the futures of those children with hearing loss. What he wondered about was my own business savvy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a PhD, I'm a professional, I have many, many years in the field. But so what? How does that translate into becoming a business owner?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a great deal of, I didn't certainly then, I have a lot more now, of business savvy. But what I do have, and a lot of other people do, is the ability to make relationships and try and figure out other people, usually other small business owners or other people who might have this idea or this special skill set, and be able to say, I really am looking for somebody who can do this for me. I have a lot of passion, I have a lot of ideas, but how do I make this happen? And trying to find that network of other people that can be your support, like you were to me, Dan, is so important. I don't have to have all the business savvy in the world if I can have people that I consistently touch base with who support me.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, as small business owners, I can support their growth too. And just like you and me growing our businesses together, I've done that with others as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important. It's not just my business. It's
Mm-hmm.
my dream, but various people are involved in growing it and sustaining it.
That's really great. A great way of putting it. So, but back to near the beginning. About how many 0 months, like no, it didn't even make a dollar, did you have like back at the beginning, and how long has it been since you last had one, to your recollection?
Well, we always had orders. The book that I had written that was the impetus for me to start the business took the field by fire. But me managing expenses and having to invest in things that were, there was some 0 months in those first couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, since the third year, certainly, and I would even say toward the second year,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have 0 months. That doesn't mean I made a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great deal of income, and as my own personal salary was low, very low for the first 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Starting that fourth year, things have been growing logarithmically, I would even say.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and the reason why I actually asked specifically about 0 months is because I think that's every entrepreneur's greatest fear, right? And so what I want to do is I want to ask these sorts of questions to get an idea. It's like, okay, so what's really realistic? You know, like if you start a business, you've got a nice niche, you know that like you can get the attention, then like how much is too much? When do you say it's like, all right, this is a lame duck, time to put a pin in it, versus like what can you expect like for things to be like actually okay? And this is one of the things that in some online marketing circles, like particularly the ClickFunnels ones, they really like to emphasize is that like you don't actually fail until you quit. But you have to have a decent business idea, and there's just something that rings about a great business idea that it just sounds different from others. It's where it's like, wow, that's like very little effort, extremely profitable, and very little overhead. It's just like, hooray! It's like you probably have. You probably had accountants saying the same thing as I had, which is like, Dan, you've got to find some business expenses.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird problem to have. But anyways, so I also pride myself on being a great negotiator, and you're definitely a great negotiator. So when did you develop that? Was it as a teacher or in academics or what?
Well, thank you. I would say in my work in the schools, of course, school budgets are always very, very slim, and we're expected to be able to try and buy more with less, get more with less. And so there was a lot of negotiating with companies that I had to do to get appropriate hearing technology on kids so they have access to their school subjects. But I think it goes back farther. My own father was a wonderful businessman who was very good at spot estimates and negotiating. And that was something that he did beyond just his work world. So I got to see that in action. And the whole piece about negotiating I learned from him too is that it's not always about getting the very, very cheapest price. Mm-hmm. It's about getting the fairest price. Mm-hmm. If you really are in it for the long run as a small business person and you need to find suppliers who will be continuing with you, you want to aim for fair, not negotiate them or leverage them to the point where their profit is so low they really can't continue on with you for an extended period of time. You want to be able to find those folks that you take care of them and they take care of you. So mm-hmm. negotiating to be fair is I think a key importance in
I really like that. I really like that because it kind of reminds me of, like, you don't bite the hand that feeds. Yeah. Right? It's because like I've also had that where, like some situations, like there'll be like a client or something like that where you're just like, okay, well, I can do this person's work first, or I can do that person's work first. And it's called, like, if that person's always, like arguing with you, then, you end up building a bit of animosity, which is a tough thing that, you got to get that out of your life if you're actually going to, keep going, because, who needs more negativity? But okay, that's really interesting. Now that I've moved from being the guy who put shopping carts and forums into sites into becoming a developer that enabled fulfillment options for organizations like yours. Like, you remember the shopping cart? There were many things it couldn't do on its own. One of the biggest ones was if you wanted to send notifications to your suppliers for physical products, the only thing you could do is basically add them. You had two options. You could either add them as a CC recipient of all of your orders, which is not something you want to do, like telling their suppliers, so by the way, this is exactly how much money I'm making and exactly how much I'm charging. It's like, you don't want to share that stuff with them. And the other one you could do is you could set up an autoresponder, an automatic email separately that goes out every time. The problem with that is you can't include the quantity. There's no way to include the quantity. And of course, now I'm thinking about it again. It's like, well, actually, I do have another way of doing that, but
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And you have that ingenuity, that problem solving. I remember many conversations. It's like, well, this is how you did. But there is this other way. Let me check that out.
yeah, exactly. I just hate saying no, right? I hate saying it can't be done, and it's. I think most of it is people get deceived by the little headings and like what the labels they put it inside the shopping cart. People get hung up on those words, whereas I'm going like, okay, the fundamentals of what it's actually doing, like, what is that, and then how can I rig that to do what I actually want to achieve. But it's now it takes ages for me to explain to anybody all the things I do. And like I literally wrote the book on the different skills I use to be successful, and it's a thick book. So I worked for you back when I was trying to be everything to everybody. Yeah. So you really do have a better idea than most people of what I do, even though it's been like pushing like 4 or 5 years or something like that. But yeah. And I had to, because that was when my other client bought out all 40 hours of my time. That was back in.
No.
Yeah.
Back to follow.
yeah, pretty much. So anyway, so obviously, it's been an amazing 5 years for both of us, but since we haven't worked with each other for so long, and because of just where I am in general, and for the benefit of our audience, I think it's important that I'm totally fine with criticism of my work and behavior from back then, because, like, as a professional, I've sought out the problems that I'd had, and gone, okay, so how can I improve that? How could I, like how could I perfect that? And so no holds barred. Can you think of anything that, like, the entire time we were working with each other, where it made you think that I didn't know what I was doing?
No, no, not at all. I know what my specialty is,
Yeah.
and you stepped in where my knowledge dropped off
Hmm.
and helped me to meet the goals that I had, and that was to have a successful online business.
Hmm.
And I mentioned this before, what you brought to the table was a skill set that I didn't need to learn,
Hmm.
and then you also were a very good listener. This was my issue. And you would ask questions. So is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Okay, it's this now. And then I remember you saying, okay, so we can do, well, this might work and this might work. And frankly, you would step back and you would figure it out. Saying, okay, Dan, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for your help with this. And then the next morning, you'd be contacting me saying, I was up till 2 in the morning and I figured it out, and we're going to do this, 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 and this. Um, it's
So,
not just it's not just a knowledge base and a skill set. There's something more inherent in being a problem solver and truly wanting to be that person to support the other business person in reaching their goals. And how can we do that? And sorting through the possibilities and saying, I'm there for you and I will work to figure it out with you.
thank you. That's very flattering. And like the next question I had here was like, so of course there were situations where, and you already described it, where I wasn't sure like how we go about doing it, and then, but I was also pretty upfront about, like, when I said this is something I don't know how to do, but
Yeah,
I know how to find it, and I'll get back to you.
right.
Right, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Hey, Karen, I spent the weekend and I learned a new computer language so I can help you with this. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I'd hire me. Anyways, but on that topic, so replacing your tech, okay? Like I've had to do that, like with techs that were in my, that I was their boss, and it's always a nasty, nasty, awful situation, especially because actually, I guess, well, actually, again, before I asked this question, I remember I had another client who I think on two different occasions they had problems with another developer as they were replacing me. And basically, because the invoice was taking too long for their taste, they basically sabotaged the person's site and thought that, like that, oh, well, I guess it was hacked, that kind of thing, right? And then magically the invoice got paid.
Mm.
Yeah, and then it got unhacked. It was amazing. And so you have you ever had that happen? Yeah,
No, I have
yeah,
not. I've
yeah.
had I've hired a tech to do a very narrow scoped project that was totally bungled. He
Mm,
just didn't have the skills.
right.
That's as close as I would get because it's from a person's point of view that is not from a technical field per se. Selecting somebody is really a challenge because they say, well, I can do this, I have these these skills, and we don't have any way of knowing if that's true or not,
Hmm.
other than by reviews. And sometimes that's not the best way to do it. So it's wonderful to be able to find somebody who not only has the skills, but then can leverage their own knowledge and do the problem solving to really precisely help what it is I need.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But so when you had to replace me, can you walk through like how that worked? Like like a first thing that comes to mind is like I had some of that fancy stuff on there, and then you ended up replacing it
Yeah.
with something else by somebody else. So how did, like, walk me through that real quick?
Well, it's been a while
Hmm.
now, Dan. So, and middle age, so but it was a very challenging time. That's what I remember, because I really depended on you uh, to keep everything up and running. If I had a customer issue, I couldn't answer it.
Hmm.
And so when you left, I still had customer issues and I couldn't answer them.
Right.
And you had built in some substructure into my online shopping system
Right.
that nobody else, was
Yeah.
maintaining. So I had to step back, and I think I ended up going to a whole different system in one way or another. I mean, you had integrated into a variety of things, into professional development and into the actual shopping cart. And I think there was another test that you did. You did a lot for me.
Right, right.
And
And so, so
yeah,
what's which shopping cart are you using now? Are you still using one shopping cart, or is this something different?
no, I'm on WooCommerce.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I'm
I've been
on,
hearing a lot of them recently.
yeah,
So,
and
okay.
it, and it's very decent. Certainly, it's free, and there's
Hmm.
lots of good plugins available. But you
Hmm.
still need to have a developer available to be able to do the coding to tweak it even more. So I
Hmm.
suppose that's not so unusual. Um, but
Hmm.
it's been a journey. It really has been a journey.
Right, right. And so, the next question I have here is, how many techs did you hire and find out it didn't work out? Was it only the one, or were there a few?
There were a few.
There were a few.
There were a few. And I'm finally in a place where, yeah, I probably bumbled around for 3 years, I would think, trying to
Oh
figure out.
God, that's terrifying.
And then I finally have found a system. I'm working with a small business that does marketing, and then they also cover my customer service, my social media platform, and they have a small team of developers to do my IT support too.
Good
And
for you.
so working with that team that kind of has wraparound has been good. And it's also it's fine, I've grown beyond having just one person do that development for me. And I think that's an important thing too. You
Mhm.
started when I was really small and my needs were really precise, and then I was growing from there. But but now it's Sporting Success has grown into a lot of things. We have a membership program, we do professional development, we have an online conference, we sell over 70 products, plus have a 300 plus page website. And
Mhm.
that has 30,000 people a month visiting it. And so I need to have that team of developers on tap so that they can problem solve,
Mhm.
get me through some of these issues that are occurring now. Not often, but they still occur. Happens with
Right.
online business. That's how it is.
Yeah, yeah. And the problem from our side is, of course, like what worked yesterday doesn't necessarily work today, and it's just because somebody else is doing it. But and that's a tough balance to figure out, right? Which is like, do
Yeah.
you like if you've got the hotshot developer, you could depend on him, but or her, of course, but then the hit by a bus scenario is a big problem, and it's extremely unlikely that something that's custom coded, as long as the person keeps up on the changes with each version of the programming language,
Mhm.
they're probably not using antiquated commands, because that when you do a software update like from PHP 5.4 to 5.5 or whatever, the real difference is they just say, okay, these commands, we thought that they're stupid, so we got rid of them, and then you should use this one instead. And as a programmer, it's your responsibility to keep track of that.
Right.
So as long as you keep track of that, and you pay close attention to, hey, I used this command and it's now being phased out. That's the only problem you can run into. But with something like a shopping cart, or honestly, I'd say that there are shopping carts that are much worse than one shopping cart, for being obtuse. Like I know, like for example, in Fusionsoft, they've got a problem where if you call them up and you say, "All right, I want a list of all the orders. I don't want any declines and I don't want any refunds. Which report do I use?" If you're calling the up support and you ask that exact question, you're going to get one of, I don't know, three answers. One is, okay, give me a moment, I'll check that out. Second one is, I'll ask my colleagues. And then the third one, which is definitely my favorite now, is there isn't one. Now, of course, They have another word, as you're probably aware, for all the orders without the declines and without the refunds, which is, of course, revenue.
Yeah.
So you'd think that would be a priority to have a one report where you could say it's like I don't want to manually say, okay, that was a refund, so I'm not going to export that or anything like that. So there are so many things that can go wrong with these shopping carts just because people, they got severe myopia in their programming techniques. So now one of the other things is, and I don't know if you remember this, but right from the beginning, I gave you a compliment that I've never given any other business, which is I told you that your business is exactly what the internet is for. Okay? It's ultra specific, but ultra important. Okay? The people affected by it, it's like this, it almost takes over their lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's that level of importance.
It's a pretty specific niche, and I'm fortunate. It's really a small market. So my target market is teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, and there's an estimated 15,000 in the U.S., which is very tiny. But then there's thousands and thousands of parents of these children, and this is a particular group, teachers of the deaf, that have no national association. So they don't have a place where they can go to for information. So Supporting Success for Children with Hearing Loss has popped in and become this umbrella go-to site for basic information, resources they can download, products they can buy, professional development, and keeping them abreast of what's going on. I have a bi-monthly updates that go out for 9 months out of the year, and it goes out to a list of over 13,000 subscribers. And they're very topical, and they're also my key marketing vehicle. And they have an open rate between 25 and 30%. So it's
good. That's exactly what I was going to ask you. What's your open rate? What's your click through rate? Yeah, but the 30% open rate, that's killer. That's
depending on the topic. Sometimes it's close to 40.
Yeah. In the online marketing biz, if you can get 15%, then like people are like, it's like, we're not worthy. Tell us your wise ways. Yes, it's a matter of not pounding your list to death, right?
Right.
If they're expecting it and then they see it pop up, it's like, oh right, yeah, let me check that out now, see if there's anything new. So because the kids are getting bored or it's like, oh well, I got a new. I'm teaching a different grade now, so it just reminds you. It's like, oh yeah, I better go check out on the materials that are right now. So the next question is like you said that there's no association for educators to get this information, and you're filling a true void, even though the market is relatively tiny. And I totally agree. But everyone has to get paid. So are you comfortable sharing like a ballpark? I'm maybe not off the top of your head, but you might be off by like 10% or 15% or whatever. But what's the distribution of revenue these days between like speaking versus like products or something like that? What are the percentages?
I looked this up in case you asked this question. And I looked at my end of year 2018 gross profit. And my little company made almost...
Karen was kind enough to tell me all of the exact numbers for 2018, but as a security advisor, I had to edit out the exact numbers, but I changed it to a chart with percentages for you. I'll let Karen explain the parts, but here's the summary. Karen's business is now a mid-six-figure business, and I understand it's getting double-digit growth, and has been for the last 2 years or so. She had a one-off virtual conference that actually accounted for 21% of her entire annual revenue. She was also selling a software package that she'll describe in a moment, and that accounted for 12%. Just barely accounting for the lion's share were dropship products, which is 24% of the entire year's revenue. Then, as a publishing company with her different books, I understand she has about 15 now, she made 19%. The part that really surprised me in this interview was that speaking has gone from basically subsidizing the rest of the business to being only 8% of this mid-six-figure business. Karen also has a recurring membership, which accounts for 12% of her annual income, and then professional development accounted for 4% of the total.
In revenue. In revenue. Okay, yeah.
Yep. Yep. So that's not with expenses. So
Right.
that didn't go in my pocket. But
Yeah.
gross sales are a wonderful thing, a wonderful measure where you can certainly see the activity that's going on in your business, and it improves over years. We had a virtual conference last year that made online a captioning app, speech to text, automated captioning products. Sole Source Supporting Success is its own publisher. We have about a dozen sole source titles. Speaking revenue, and it's funny, early on it was my speaking revenue that floated the membership program called Teacher Tools for teacher professional development in 16. So I think part of the strength of my business is not just selling one thing. We have a lot of free information. We have a lot of downloadable resources people can go and get for free. And we also have these various products and the Teacher Tool membership, the professional development. We aren't just selling one kind of widget. And so that's a strength as well. Plus, I am out there invited as a paid public presenter by schools, about a dozen a year, which isn't a tremendous amount, but you have 50 to 150 people in the room at a time, and every time I would go out and speak, then the purchase orders would come in. So it's growing very steadily, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, and congratulations. That's absolutely amazing. So, and then the upticks on sales after those events. It's like, so do you include that in? Because I'd just be concerned because like you're saying that this small amount came from actually speaking, but those little, like you see those little blips like on the day of or the day after you were just speaking, I imagine. And so is like what, like just a ballpark. You do a speaking event and you're expecting like what, like 10K in sales within that week, or like 20, or just a few grand, or
now schools aren't that easy because their purchase orders come in the fall or the spring. So I speak in February. The purchase order isn't going to come probably till the end of April.
So for taxes,
being able to say and look and like, oh, so-and-so Texas did come through, and wow, that's a nice, they send in a nice PO.
Right.
So it's hard for me to say, we had this many more sales based on this particular speaking engagement, because about half of what schools buy or more is through purchase orders that don't come in like a timely online sale. I mean, we have people in the audience who are buying things
with their phone, right? Yeah.
Listening, which is really cool. But it's not the whole scope for my particular business.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So do you deliberately schedule your events to match those purchase order cycles? Like do you really nail it about like a few weeks to a month before the purchase orders are usually put out? Okay, so you just put it throughout the year.
I'm tied to the school schedule. They have days they can the teachers can get let off to go to a meeting, and so it's a lot more related to that. And I'm the one that's getting invited. I don't go out there and solicit presentation engagements. This is, people know me because of the bi-monthly updates. They know me because, I'm right there on the back of the book they carry with them every day they teach kids.
That's got to be amazing. So you've kind of given us an idea of the experience of the people you help. So these teachers who you end up helping, how frequent is it that they're just a regular teacher who suddenly is assigned a child with hearing loss or hearing difficulties, compared to like the number where they're district staff and that's like all they do? What's the percentages as far as you're aware right now in the States?
Hard to nail down. What typically happens is that the teacher of the deaf goes out and meets with the group of teachers or the school staff that's going to support that particular student, and they share and say, go to Supporting Success. There's lots of information beyond what I can share in this meeting. So if you have a question, you'll be able to find the answer there. And I would say that fewer than 5% of the visits to the site are actual regular education teachers. Most of the time it is the teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing who will meet with them once and then continually consult with them across the school year. They are the ones feeding the pertinent information to the teachers. And of course, if a teacher comes up with a question that the teacher of the deaf can't answer, or she needs to scramble to find the evidence-based practices on, they'll come to my site.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So now back to finding you though. Like I know that they could Google it, and more teachers you would know how to do that now than when you started. But you know, so to get your name out there, were you originally talking to school boards, or did you already like have a network of these that just like grew and grew and grew, or like what exactly did that look like?
Yeah.
You know, getting your name out.
Well, I had the advantage of having been in the field for 25 years, and I was rather a maven, so I was connected to a lot of people. I had been active in my professional associations, that sort of thing. So I had sort of a recognizable name. And when my business started, I still had speaking engagements, and I'm not shy. I would try and connect through listservs. I would bring this up and say, hey, you know, this is for free right here. And you know, this, you might find this useful. Look here. And there's some other stuff you might see on the site too. So I didn't engage in selling my products as much as I did selling the concept of having information in one spot where you could go to try and figure out what you need to do to support that student with hearing loss. It's not like I went and bought mailing lists, email lists.
Right.
I've done that since, you know, last year and a half, and I found that's really not very effective.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of money, and it just isn't very targeted at all.
Yeah.
So
a lot of times if people are selling the list, that's because they can't really find a use for it either.
Well,
you know, like it's
lesson learned here. Lesson
yeah.
learned. So I did it mainly just through professional connections and word of mouth, and making what I had to offer so compelling that people were excited to share it with families and with their colleagues.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. The one common business piece of advice for high-end coaches, they'll end up saying that make sure that you sell the transformation, the personal transformation, not the product, and definitely not the features.
Yep.
You know, so it sounds like, you know, like that's definitely in there where, you know, you're not putting all your chips on one particular product. You know, you're saying it's like, okay, here's the resource. So it's, you know, and that's an interesting thing to see. And what I really wanted to ask while you were saying that was, okay, if you had to start it all from zero again. So let's say you only had a bachelor's instead of a PhD, something like that. Or you know, maybe no paper at all. So because like there might be somebody watching this who has another need that's similar to hearing loss. And you know, they're concerned about doing this because they're saying like, okay, well, there aren't that many people. Like, you know, like what if somebody turned around and you said, oh, there's only 15,000. It's like, no, I know I can get those 15,000 people to be involved. I can have a positive impact in their life. And that's what I'm going to tirelessly do is I'm going to just, you know, find more and more and more stuff to help people and put it on the site.
Right.
So
niche. No one is.
Yeah, that's you know, that's a really important thing. So like if you did have to start from zero though, like what would you do right now?
Well, and there are cases where parents who have no professional background have started sites to help other parents, and it's a very similar kind of a thing. What would I do differently? I think it is important to have your mission clearly in your head, and you should, you know, what we do for our careers, it's our life's work. So this is what we're dedicating our lives to. And for my own case, I'm making money secondary to my life's work. But it's my passion that drives my life's work. And so you need to be passionate about what you're doing. I found that it's very useful to have a mission statement. Ours is improving the futures of children with hearing loss. And I go back to it very regularly. What else do I need to do? Or just looking at various products or whatever, is this really going to help my basic mission? And sell the mission. Mm-hmm. And figure out what other groups are going to benefit and come together to say, oh gosh, this is such an important mission. And I know sometimes it's when we think, well, I'm selling this thing that's really useful. I'm selling the product. No, you're selling the usefulness. It's like what you said about transformation. You're going to make something better about somebody's life because of that. And I think that there's a way, now there's so much more possibilities to connect people via social media. And it's not my thing. I don't do Facebook, and I'm a dinosaur. But if I were to start today with a bachelor's degree, I'm 33 years old, whatever, or, just I've been working in a field and have come upon this idea and think it's really important to share with other folks. I think it levels the playing field. Social media levels the playing field. It's handy I have a PhD. It improves my credibility, but if I wasn't associated at all with the site, if I wasn't the name behind the site, it still would be a very valuable, well-respected site because of the credibility of the information, because of the mission I'm selling to improve kids with hearing loss, to improve their futures. That's the transformation I'm selling. And on social media, to bring people to your site is the leveling, to level the playing field. The other thing I think is really important right now is the use of videos. Like what we're doing now. The more you can do attestations or sit down and just explain people and say, here, this is the sifter. It's the screening instrument for targeting educational risk. This is how you use it. This is how it's going to help a student with hearing loss. This is how it's going to help your school process. And make it 10 minutes and go. And and if you need more information, and there's lots of resources like this you'll find on, and bring them back to the website. So improve their knowledge, improve their wanting to do what you want them to do, wanting to improve those kids' futures. So those are the two pieces that have come up since I started my business that are real opportunities, I think, for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And actually, when I was clicking on the site, I was going through your site and I was looking to see what you were doing as far as social media. One thing that pops out right now is I don't see anything from Instagram, and I'd encourage you to get on there, especially because of the women's penetration into that platform. It's super popular with women, and if you skip Instagram, then you're skipping a lot of women. So I see that you got the widget.
Just hired somebody.
Oh, you just hired somebody? Excellent. And so that agency, does it also take care of your social media? Like, does it regularly post to your Facebook, or?
Yes.
I guess I could find out.
Yeah, the agency I have, yes, they're posting to the Facebook. They're not specialists. They're taking the information from the site and posting. I have so much content. Unlike a lot of businesses where, writing a newsletter is a big deal because they don't have content. They have to find it from somewhere. I have tons of content. So they take what is readily available from across the years and post. But I just hired somebody who is in my specialty field who will be connecting with those people on the Facebook groups specific to kids who are deaf or hard of hearing, and be developing those streams that are very specialty based. Again, it's trying to sell that transformation, come into the same club we are in, which is improving the outcomes of these kids. I think you need both.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy that you used the word Facebook group because Facebook groups are taking over Facebook in a huge way. And I'm actually really enjoying it because I find that, the problem of Facebook has always been that, if your friends aren't entertaining, then then Facebook is just like, oh, okay. So some friend or oh, my cousin's husband bought her some flowers.
Yeah. I don't care what you ate at the bar.
Exactly. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. So it's really neat to see that we can connect with these different groups. And I think it's really going to change the landscape. Admittedly, I haven't totally figured out Instagram, but I've already started to schedule some interviews with some influencers from Instagram to see. It's like, okay, so what are you doing? And it's fun too, because it'll be a neat little, it'll be a meeting that doesn't usually happen, right? Like the CTO I'm a CTO of a bank, for crying out loud, right? And so I'm sitting here talking to some Instagram model who's always relied on her looks, and this is a good chance for them to show that they're more than just a pretty face. There actually is a lot of thought that has to go into getting a following and all that kind of fun stuff. So, but when I did Google you, I pretended I was a teacher, right? And so I didn't use any of the neat Google tricks like adding a plus sign before the most important word or putting things in quotations or whatever. So I Googled help students with hearing loss. Help students with hearing loss. I think that's a realistic search term. So when I Googled it, you are on the front page. I did it. I didn't hide my location, and so that means like Google would give preference to people who like are at least in the same country as you, even though I don't always. I usually dislike it when they do that, but c'est la vie. So I got a .au site, which I think that's Australia. I don't think it's Austria. I got an edu site. I got a .org site. I got a Canadian site. Then a Government of Canada PDF, and then I got a page on your site. Okay, so you were talking about filling this void. Have you put any effort into creating the actual national association for this?
No.
Okay,
I'm not, because Britain has a fabulous National Association for Teachers of the Deaf, and it's, I don't know, many years old. And if the teachers in the U.S. had really wanted one, we would have one. Mm-hmm. And I won't go into the politics, but there are some politics in the field between those who are very passionate about kids signing and those who are very passionate about kids only listening, and that has created a divide. So part of the challenge I have is being unbiased in all ways. And as people come together, I am more and more replacing the function of the association by having the association newsletter. Only it's free. And if they want to have specific materials, hey, we have a Teacher Tools membership, or we have a professional academy that's also a membership that they can do. Not all of the functions of a membership of an association are there, but people don't want to pay association fees.
Sure. So you got all the pluses with none of the minuses. I love it. Yep. I love it.
Yeah. Plus, I see products that they need, which an association generally doesn't.
Right. That makes loads of sense. Yeah, basically, I guess the only other thing you could really do, I suppose, would be, like sell a label. That's the only other revenue stream I can think of. Is okay, so this is approved by the association of, whatever it is that you'd want to be in association with. But I totally support your decision. Your logic makes perfect sense to say, it's like, no.
Our logo and our name shows up more and more. We put it on certificates of participation. It's becoming to be seen as a representative of this umbrella place to go. And it's building its own. It has built its own credibility by people's enthusiasm.
So, and so 5 years, 10 years from now, do you think like what things do you expect will be different?
Well, I am currently in the process of bringing on partners.
Hmm.
So that's a very exciting thing. And the exciting thing about it to me is that I bring on different viewpoints, different perspectives, different levels of passion, that sort of a thing. So part of this I really can't project too much.
Hmm.
I would think that we will continue to provide our products as we do, but we're going to reach out into helping families more. Um,
Hmm.
and it's again tied to the politics of what's going on in the field of special education today. But more and more kids are underserved and not receiving appropriate services, which means more and more families are seeking help. And
Hmm.
so the partners I'm bringing on is her specialty is parent advocacy. And
Hmm.
so that's a whole nother avenue. It's not just the 15,000 teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, it's the 100,000 families of
Hmm.
who are deaf or hard of hearing who hopefully will soon find a home or within the next 5 years be a place to go to find how they can help their school-age child.
Right. And it looks like you're not really having any problems because maybe it is because of the mission statement, like you said, you're not having any problems letting go, because you know that you're actually freeing yourself up to do more anyways, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep.
it's a very exciting stage, and it's been absolutely amazing watching your business grow. And of course, the other thing that's fun is I get to take some vicarious credit for it, even
Yes.
though I totally don't really deserve it.
Mhm.
It's really the grind, right? And that's the recurring subject in all of these episodes is, and you've already said plenty about it, but just to wrap it up in a nice tidy little bow. It goes back to the same thing that about the grind. You have to be willing to do the work,
Yes.
and if you can find something where you're willing to do the work and most people aren't willing to do the work, that's when you can build something.
Mhm.
So like for example, I have no love for programming at all. Okay, it just turns out that I'm really really good at it, and I don't mind grinding. Okay, so the thing like at least with that, and what I mean by grinding is sitting there going like, okay, another day staring at a computer screen, making a bunch of gibberish that's going to make this thing happen. And I'll tell you straight out, I'm incentivized by money. So the way that I grind, do that thing where people are like, this stuff melts my brain. It melts my brain sometimes, not as much as most people. But like the way I feel better is like instead of little keystrokes, all I hear is cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. And that's how I grind. And you grind by, realizing the positive influence that you're having on all these different people with, like we're clearly still not where we need to be as far as understanding hearing loss
No.
and educating our kids to be the most, to live the best lives that they can, regardless of what they're dealing with. So I want to thank you not only for being on the show, but I want to thank you for what you've been doing all these years. It's great to do that, and it's awesome talking to you after it because it's been years since we've been on a phone.
Yes.
So it's really cool watching this all unfold and knowing this, like, we don't really have to be nice to each other, but we're nice to each other because
I
we
respect.
deserve it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's really cool to have that. And thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything else you wanted to say before you go? Anything,
But just thanks, Dan. It's been fun to watch your improved success over time, and you're just such a go get 'em kind of a guy. And leave it to you to figure it out.
Thanks, Karen. All
Thanks.
right, thanks everybody for watching. Talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon.
Bye bye.
All right, bye bye.